Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Unbelievers. I'm Cams, your host, an unbeliever, joined as always by...
Barge, also an unbeliever.
There we go. How are you today, Barge?
I'm well. I'm in an Andalusian type setting out in the countryside. The air is fresh and sweet and blah, blah, blah. I've got a couple of donkeys for neighbors. You know, I pick up their poop and give them grass and apples, you know. It's very nice. I'm good. I'm happy.
Good. Are you getting some aliantha to eat?
Well, something by a different name.
The donkey's eating Amani Bhavam.
Amani Bhavam, yeah, it sounds very Sanskrit.
Does,
and later on, actually, after that section, they talk about the Neel guy, like just half a page later. And that is an Indian cattle.
I wondered what that was.
Yeah. I know, it's just a strange insertion, right?
Ah. I was too tired and lazy to look it up, so I just didn't bother. So thanks for that.
Cool. Well, we'll come to it.
Yeah, we'll come to that. Excellent. Okay. So today we're looking at chapter 18, The Plains of Ra, the home of the Ramen.
Those magnificent horses or horse-type creatures, huh?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Are they horses?
Or some kind of super horse, maybe.
Yeah. They're certainly treated very differently from the regular horses, also just known as horses.
They also perform very differently. They respond differently. They choose their riders, don't they? It's not the other way around.
Yeah. So we had that scene when the Blood Guard called them when we were at Revelstone, and the Ranahan appeared almost instantaneously, having heard the call long before, back in time, to give them enough time to set off and arrive at Revelstone just as the whistle was being blown.
I know, like, fantastic, huh? However, in this chapter, they actually called. And I was wondering, okay, for the sake of Mr. Donaldson and his consistency, that maybe that anticipation of the call only applies to the first arrival, as it were. Because when because I mean, just like here, they were, I don't know what they were doing, but before setting off, there comes a point at some stage where they were called. So they weren't actually there when they were needed, if you see what I mean, in the way that they were when they first appeared.
Yeah, but they were in the vicinity.
They were in the vicinity, so that might be the difference.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's just that initial call.
Cool.
Oh, it was a nice scene where they went off to Andalusian to roll in the grass.
Right.
That was a nice scene.
Yeah. And also, that point where they arrive in, I think, in the plains of Ra, and they're all broken up and like really tired. I'm talking about the Mustangs, the regular horses. And then, you know, they're restored, and it's done pretty quickly and with kind of nice herbs and things. And
yeah, that's the Amani Bhavam, is it?
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. That's it. And it's what do you call it? Poisonous to humans.
Yeah, and Covenant.
TC really wants to eat it. Huh?
Yeah,
I mean, poor guy is so hungry. But we're jumping about all over the place, Cams.
Well, we certainly are. We're allowed to do that. It's our show.
Yeah, it's our show. Right. Okay. So where are we?
Well, we've just had the big battle at Soaring Woodhelven, and they're going through the aftermath of that. They're burying all the dead. Everyone's gubbed, including Foam Follower, who's got a big wound on his forehead.
No, he's whacked, huh? He's totally whacked. Yeah, and he's also, like, I mean, he won't even keep a little bit of the hurt loom for himself, right?
No, he gives it for a cave white, doesn't he?
Yeah, because he couldn't bear to see the agony. And that's over and above giving it to the little kid. who he carries in his arms all the time.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, yeah. But, yeah, so Thomas Covenant, he sleeps and he kind of dreams a bit, and when he wakes up, he feels shit that he hasn't helped bury the dead and stuff like that, huh?
Yeah, let's go back to his dream, because he has a dream about doing a perpetual VSE. So that's something I think we should take a look at. Restless unconsciousness arose from within him like a perpetually enumerated VSE, and he spent his repose telling in dreams that rigid round, left arm, shoulder to wrist, left hand, palm and back, each finger, right arm, shirt, chest, left leg, VSE. So he's dreaming about doing his VSEs.
Actually, that's a very good point, because it's just an intro to what comes about later on, because he has this, he's in this kind of, back to that oscillating, contradictory kind of phase where, participate and go mad, refuse to participate and go mad.
Yes.
And he doesn't know what to do. What's his name? Moram comes to him and tries to be friendly, and he shrugs him off, and, I can't afford to have friends.
Mm-hmm.
He says, and he's avoiding something. He's afraid to answer the question. He's becoming aware that he's avoiding. And later on, when he decides to go on that hunger thing, and as they were getting high, and he relaxes a bit more, he then talks about lassitude.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then that, he says, is the big danger, because it's the first step on this inexorable whatever fall down for a leper. Because then you stop doing your VSE.
That's right.
Then you get gangrene. And once you got gangrene, everybody can't stand the smell of you, and blah, 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 blah. And he's in this kind of state where he's been hunger fasting for a while, and he's aware of his lassitude, as it were, on the back of the horse.
Yeah.
Where, it's just his habit of riding that's keeping him going. And so, yeah, so that's an intro to that kind of state of mind, thrown in right at the very start of that chapter.
Yeah, so I get the feeling that this whole battle scene has been quite traumatic for him, and so he's kind of retreating back into himself again, which is where the dream's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, he was going on about children, oh, the children, how can you do it to the children, and I will never kill again, so he's, yeah. Yeah,
and he has a conversation with Foam Follower about that, so after he's kind of given Moram the brush off, Foam Follower comes up to him and they start talking about the child, little Pietin. And Foam Follower is feeling lost as well.
Yeah.
Which is not like him. I mean, we've come to know Foam Follower as the jolly giant, but he's not jolly here. It says, we are all going to destroy whatever we want to preserve, the essence of Fowl's method. Pietin is a present to us, an example of what we're going to do to the land when we try to save it.
Yeah, that's right. So basically, Foam Follower is saying, I don't know what's going on, I'm lost.
Yeah.
And then Covenant explains this to him. And I think this is key, because this is the key of, the key understanding that Covenant has. And I think it's quite an accurate one. It makes sense. We're all going to destroy whatever we want to preserve, the essence of Fowl's method. I thought that was, 2 sentences. Really nailed it.
He did, yeah. Now, this is what Covenant has believed throughout. that the lords didn't seem to understand when he was delivering his message that, don't you get it? I can't use this white gold. It's the paradox. And he believed that he's a tool in Lord Phil's hands and he's going to deliver himself right into Lord Phil's hands. It seems inevitable.
Yeah. Conceptually, I mean, I'm seeing this as just loops. Loops. But that's what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
That's what a catch-22 is. It's a loop.
So you would expect the loop to break at some point as we approach the end of the novel. It's how that's going to break that we're looking forward to finding out.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, this tension that's building up between the two sides of the paradox, as it were.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, everything in between. Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, so he's got this search for something within him. So after the foam follow thing, he's then pondering what it is and he has to find out. And so he decides to go on a hunger strike, as it were.
Yeah, I'm not really sure I get what that was about. Is it like a self-sacrifice thing? Or is it a cleansing thing?
Yes.
Is it to remind him of his humanity?
So this, with a grimace, he resolved to go hungry until he found what he required. And here it is. Perhaps in hunger, he would become lucid enough to solve the fundamental contradiction of his dilemma. And I thought interesting because, when you fast, it's like a high. It's a cleanse, but it's also like a high. The kind of high which, drugs are perhaps a shortcut to some kind of upper drugs,
It could bring clarity.
Right. So that's interesting. And certainly the development of this, because he's kind of tight to start with and then he does relax, over the course of the next day or so.
Right, yeah. He reiterates the fact that he doesn't want to ride a Ranahan under any circumstances. Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, this came about at Revelstone, didn't it? Remember there was the guy who was leading Jura, his horse, and he said, I don't want no stinking Ranahan. And the horse guy was like, nice one. He was quite chuffed.
Yeah, right. But, I mean, don't quite get it why. I mean, he apparently used to hate horses. Or whatever emotional connection, having had horses and then horses reminding him of his wife and things like that.
Yeah, but he is riding a horse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why, what's the thing with the Ranahan?
Yeah, I'm not sure. But anyway, he doesn't want to ride one.
No.
It's only the Bloodguard, isn't it? Not even the Lords are riding Ranahan.
But then the Ranahan chooses the rider.
Yes, of course.
And so, for Thomas Covenant, that's effectively saying sour grapes, man. As well, because does he stand a chance of even thinking that a Ranahan would choose him? Why?
And if it did and he rejected it, how would that go down?
Or maybe what he's doing is declaring to the Ranahan, who might think, I'll choose him as the white gold man to help him out. Don't do it. I don't know.
Well, there's a bit later on, so if you can indulge me here to jump ahead a little bit, when they first meet the Ramen, who are the horse lords, the ones who look after the Ranahan, they don't ride either. And Covenant actually offends one of them by asking, why don't you ride? And the guy gets really pissed off. He's like, we don't ride. And his mates have to calm him down,
They have to hold him back like he's like raging. Totally. Yeah. And the whole thing about suspicion on people who would actually ride horses. That whole thing. Now, isn't that reverence for horses. It's almost like, what's his name? Swift in Gulliver's Travels.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was the horses that was the fourth land, and that was like the most sophisticated and all that. And Gulliver doesn't leave willingly. He gets kicked out because the horses decide he's a Yahoo, and therefore he actually has to go back to the Yahoos. And then the rest of his life is spent, like, the only happy moments are when he's chatting with horses in fields.
Right. Good spot. The Yahoo. I'd forgotten about that. Is that Brobden gag? Or is that a different land?
No, that's a different land, yeah. Or that might be someone's name. I don't know.
It's a long time since
one of the giants, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll jump back to where we were. So TC's on a hunger strike, and they're travelling through the land. We just get a bit of a travel log as they approach.
Yeah. They cross the river, wash the blood of battle.
Oh yeah, that was a nice scene actually, with them all jumping in the river and washing themselves with the sand. And then Covenant washes his robes in the river. Gets all the blood out of them, but then they get stained again as they head into Moss.
Well, yeah. And the blood god who, like, within seconds, they like clean.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and then...
You don't even cause ripples.
I know, like, what's going on?
I suppose in their 2,000 years of life, they must have mastered the art of silent washing.
And it does actually also say, for lusty men, 2,000 years of, wifelessness or something.
Yeah, that's how yeah. Lusty men.
Also, I was thinking that, you know, because there's real description of TC's determination not to eat, right? Because, I mean, he's got all these temptations, the smells and, you know, all that. And even later on in Underlane, the berries. But he doesn't give in. And to me, that seemed to be the same quality of determination as his determination to manage his leprosy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He has quite an iron will, a strong sense of discipline.
Yeah, I mean, that's what got him through in the first place.
Yeah, and of self-preservation, interestingly.
Yeah. Then he finds that his ring changes a bit. I mean, there's just a tiny little mention of it. But it says, now all evidence that it resisted red encroachments was gone.
Yeah, the redness seems to be becoming more intense. I wonder if that's either because the redness accumulates over time or because they're getting closer to the source. Don't know.
His wedding band burnt completely crimson under the dominion of the moon, flaming coldly on his hand as if in greedy response to Drewl's power.
Yeah, and there's another bit where he's wavering a little bit with his hunger pangs, and it says he remembered Drewl's bloody grip on his ring and his resolve steadied.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
So it's... His mission is important to him, it seems.
Yeah. What is his mission, though? Does he know? And do we know?
No, well, he's just following the message as it was delivered. And we don't really get any of his inner thoughts about what he's going to do when he gets there. You would expect him to be speculating, maybe, or discussing it with the lords, but then obviously the lords are a bit thick, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, there's no point. They don't understand what worship is. That's so, I mean, many concepts are different. But one of his fears must also be like, look, if this is a dream and I wake up, the lassitude thing, like I don't do my VSE and this and that, and, you know, now I'm getting used to feeling better and being a somebody and accepted, and, you know, if I go back, then, like, it'll kill me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Yeah. And then also the thing is like, well, if this is a dream, I could wake up any moment. It might not be up to me.
That's true as well.
And then if I decide, how can I even decide to stay along here?
Is he aware of the fact that it's Drool who summoned him with the Staff of Law?
There's been mention of it numerous times.
Yeah. And the reason I ask is that if he's wondering how the dream could end and he could wake up again, it would have to be by facing Drool.
Good point. So the way in will be the way out.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Right.
But yeah, as I say, he doesn't seem to be thinking very much ahead. He's just dealing with the present moment so far.
Yeah. And he's in this dreamlike state, kind of, you know.
Yeah, but all the time, the longer he's in the land, the more land-like he becomes. I mean, he's already now wearing robes and sandals. He's got rid of his boots and all of that.
He's an Earl Lord.
He's an Earl Lord, almost a High Lord, if he'd taken the job.
Yeah, right.
And he's feeling the land. He's able to discern the earth power, and he's come to appreciate it. He seems to be, and this is what he's talking about, I guess, when he talks about the lassitude being the first step, is that his acceptance of being in the land, that the more he accepts that, the more dangerous his situation becomes.
Yeah, exactly. Huh? I mean, that's definitely a part. Mm.
Right, so we march on, we get to the top of the hill, and we get a view of Moss, the forest. And this is where we get our first mention of the Forestals, I believe.
What about Grimard Hoar and Garrotting Deep?
Yeah, these are other forests in the land. And we then get a bit of an info dump from Moram about the forests of the land and how the whole land used to be one forest, and then man came along and started chopping them down, and we ended up with thousands and thousands of trees being harvested, and the result of which is that we've ended up with 4 forests, and then the forests, I don't know, they put a stop to it somehow.
They got pissed off. So at first they kind of welcomed them and, you know, all the animals and things like that. And even like, you know, when man started, I think, you know, it was only when it got more and more and more. And then the 4 forests themselves were kind of spread out, so to speak. So the energy was divided and split and they were like really pissed off and so fought back and killed like loads of men.
And their awareness endured in the care of the Forestals. So each of the 4 forests has its own caretaker. And Moss, I guess, will have its own, but we don't meet it. But
at least, I mean, because it was a choice whether to go through the forest or not, right? And it was presumably quicker and, the important point was that no spark, no blade is allowed.
Yeah.
So no fires and no unsheathed knives, because they want to present as peaceful a side of themselves as possible. Because even though it's been a while since there has been, as it were, peace between the forest and humans, that's unsure, and all these creatures haven't been seen for a while, the Forestals and things like that, huh?
Yeah.
But at least they'll be safe from drool and foul, because they've done great harms to the forest in the past and wouldn't dare. Even Drool Rockworm is not mad enough to order his forces into Moss at such a time.
Aye.
And the Despiser has never been such a fool.
Well, that's an interesting data point. So if they're ever being chased by Urviles or whatever, and they're near a forest, they could just run in for safety, couldn't they? If the forest would have them. It says they remembered, and no human or vile or cave wight who dared enter them survived. And there's a bit where Covenant actually senses some hatred coming from certain trees, ones who remember. Yeah, here and there he could hear trees that were still awake and aching for blood, but they were too few, too few. Morin Moss could only brood, bereft of force by its own ancient mortality. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas Covenant seems to display a lot of sensitivity to this current state of the forest and the trees. Yeah. And he has this interaction with the moss, which begins to really piss him off. And he almost can't stop himself from, like, just slashing at it with a knife, but he doesn't. Yeah. But he's got a sense of the forest, and he's also got a sense, somehow, that the lords and all that stuff is just too young for the forests to even remember that the lords were peaceful towards them.
Yeah. That's a trope that comes up in Lord of the Rings as well, with the Ents, which are the tree people. And the whole concept of time for forests is very different from the shortness of our lives, so that our lives wouldn't even register for the trees. But here's an interesting bit. It says that Covenant could hear the trees muttering in horror at the offence of his wedding band.
Ah, yeah.
And its pulsing red glow appalled him. So does that mean that the trees are muttering in horror at the wedding band itself, or at the fact that it's glowing red?
I was wondering.
I would suggest the second one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So the white gold in itself, I was going to say it's a natural thing, but it's not, is it? It's not of the land, so it's neither natural nor unnatural. It's alien.
Yet the Ramen in the land of Ra, they know of the white gold, or they work with it. There's some. The lady who comes to meet them at the entrance, she says something like that.
Yeah, she says we know of it, and they call him Ring Thane.
Yeah.
That's the title they give him. And remember that their title for Lord Fowl is Fang Thane. So we've got two Thanes, the good and the bad. Although the Ring Thane is neutral, isn't it? It's neither good nor bad.
Mm.
So yeah, they go through the forest, and it's Covenant comes out with his robes covered in moss, totally green. Moram's the only other one who's got some green on his shoulders. And Covenant later on tries to clean his robes, but the green doesn't come off. So he's now moss stained. We get this little bit of text here, which I've underlined as being interesting. He felt that the cistern of his rage was full of darkness. What a phrase. The darkness was a cup which he could neither drink nor dash aside, and he was trembling with hunger. So that's when he talks about him wanting to strike back at the moss.
Mm.
So yeah, he's not in a good place mentally. But they get through, they come to a halt, and their passage of Morin Moss was over. So this is where the horses are in such a weak state that they can barely stand. The Ranahan are doing okay, but the horses are not, so they have to stop and rest. And even it says of Foam Follower, now he appeared to feel the strain of travelling without the support of stories and laughter. That's quite a poignant scene. Covenant wondered if he would ever hear the giant laugh again.
Right.
So the giant sustains himself with stories and laughter, and he's been devoid of that since they arrived at Soaring Woodhelven. It says, as he's trying to clean his robes, it says, darkness murmured in his ears like the distant rumour of an avalanche. His shoulders hunched like a strangler's. Oof.
Golden brown.
Golden brown, texture like green. Just some imagery, isn't it? And
then they get at last to the plains of Ra, and the Ranahin are all excited. And they're stopped by a lady, who says, not everyone can get in, and those who mistreat horses will not enter, basically.
Yeah.
Thomas Covenant understands.
Hail Ringthane, white gold is known, so they know him. They all share a greeting, and they do the salutes. Yeah.
And she's told that TC turned the battle, basically. Okay, she's, as if, I don't know, to try and boost his I don't know, persona so that he could get in. That's what it seemed like to me.
Yeah. So she's a main thrall, which is the higher up, one of the higher up in the ranks of the Ramen. And she said they've been watching for a while as they approached, so that's how she knows who they are. She knows all of their names. But she seems not to know that Fangthane has returned. This seems to be news to her. And the High Lord answers with authority, yes, Fangthane lives. Fangthane, she breathed, enemy of Earth and Ranahan. Says she's welcoming of them.
Yeah. And then that's when Thomas Covenant offends. Why don't you ride? You've got all those Ranahan. He gets her, yeah.
Yeah, this is where the cords appear. So I guess these are like the apprentices who are still in training, and they pop up from the grass where they've been hiding, and the main thrall says, here is a test for your maining. So they're being tested, and it describes these cords. Thew, Hern, Grace and Roosta, they are hunters. While they learn the ways of the Ranahan and the knowing of the main thralls, they protect the plains from dangerous beasts. And speaking of dangerous beasts...
Well, they are pretty cool on these guys. I mean, like, it seems they can be 3 or 4 of them around you. You'd never know, and, like, they can pop up from the grass at any time, and they can move really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, dangerous beasts, huh? Loads of them.
Yeah, and they go and get some of that Amanabavam to feed to the horses to restore them. And this is where Covenant gets caught up in his fatigue. And he's roused by a new smell from clumps of rich ferny flowers that the horses were munching, the healing herbs which Cord Hern had brought for them. So it restores them pretty fast, and Covenant's feeling like he could use some himself, whereupon he's told that it's poison to humans. Then he felt a perverse desire to taste the grass. It sang to his senses delectably.
So that's when the beasts are seen, huh? Or this notification of some kind of wolf, yellow wolves. Oh, the Creche, right.
Yep.
That's what they are, right.
So we met the Creche a couple of chapters ago. I think when, remember they were travelling and the Bloodguard went off on a side quest.
Oh yeah, right.
And one of them got killed. It wasn't one of the Bloodguard, was it? It was one of the Warhaft was killed. But I believe then it was Creche that they were fighting.
Right. But here the Cords kill 15 of them.
Yeah.
I mean,
they make short work of it as well.
Totally.
Even the Bloodguard is impressed.
Well, I mean, the one that's kind of described in slow motion, where the wolf is charging along, and then the cord just appears, and in one motion has a string, a noose, which is then pulled and snaps the wolf's neck, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then the chapter ends with Banner showing off.
Oh, he snaps the cord?
Just by tightening his muscles.
Yeah. It's like you think you're cool, Mr. Cord Ramen.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll show you what I think of your weapon. Snap. But yeah, I imagine the Bloodguard and the Ramen are of similar stature. They're both quite short and muscular races. I wonder if there's any history between them.
Well, I was thinking, without a glance at Cord Grace, he left the hilltop to mount the Ranahan that had chosen him. So yeah, maybe there is.
Remember that the Bloodguard are riding the Ranahan, and the Ramen are not into that at all. Maybe that's got something to do with
right.
This kind of animosity.
Yeah, although, I mean, the Ranahan had chosen him, so, what's the problem?
That's absolutely correct, yeah. Maybe the Ramen are just jealous then, because they've never been chosen.
But the Cords are they're just apprentices at the moment. Anyway, I don't know. What's up? Why? But anyway, and Banner, usually doesn't display even this tiny little bit of emotion, or whatever it is, maybe competitiveness or whatever it might be, or desire to demonstrate something.
Yeah. I get the sense that the Ramen are an ancient race as well. I seem to recall there being a time when the desecration happened that the Ramen were able to exile themselves into safety. I think I remember reading that, but I can't be certain.
Well, you'd know better than I.
Yeah, you would think.
That's for sure.
So, yeah, that's us. End of that chapter. Moving into 19 for next week, which is entitled Ringthane's Choice.
Okay,
I think I remember what that's about, and it's going to be a banger.
All right, okay, because finally, does he decide to come off the fence and stop having it poke his backside? Who knows?
We shall see, Barge, we shall see.
Yeah, right.
So we must be getting kind of to the final scenes. Certainly the last fifth of the book. What's your overall thoughts, Barge? How are you enjoying it? Your first fantasy read?
Well, I mean, it's always interesting to enter into a custom-built world or universe, And yeah, this has been an interesting kind of journey. Let's see where it goes. I mean, fantasy. You can get a lot into it, a lot packed into it without having to rely on other things. And we still haven't unpacked quite what it is that is your connection with it. I mean, why do you have this kind of connection with a set of books that's so strong that you read them 4 or 5 times?
Yeah, and I've not really done that with any other fantasy. I've never connected so deeply with any other fantasy books. I think these ones are different in as much as it's not elves and dwarfs and the usual kind of panoply of races that you tend to get. And although there's a ring in this book, it's original. It's not derivative of the old favourites. Well, there are certain parts, like the trees and stuff like that, but it's something that maybe it's because it's a portal fantasy and it's got that our world, fantasy world kind of juxtaposition where the main character's been moved from one into the other. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah.
Because I always used to imagine portals, even as a young child, walking home from primary school. There was a certain road that I would cross that had been dug up and then resurfaced with sort of stone blocks, and I always imagined that was like a bridge, and crossing that bridge would take me into another place.
Right.
So that would have been, aged 8, 9, something like that, when I started walking to primary school.
Oh, well, there's a strong connection, yeah.
And do you remember the Butler's House Hotel in Prestwick when we were living down next to the railway line? And there was a pub on the main street that had a kind of... You could walk through the car park from the main street to my street.
I remember that.
That was another portal for me.
Oh, I see. Okay. A portal to where?
I don't really know.
And, even in that fantasy or whatever, what happened on the other side? Or you just get through the portal?
Yeah, I would know the portal would be what would take me home. And if I didn't go through the portal, then my home wouldn't be there.
Ah, that's important.
Yeah, that's how I used to think of it.
So then it becomes imperative that you go through the portal.
And also it meant that when I was home I was safe, because other people didn't know of the portal.
Wow. Safe from?
I don't know. The big bad world. My school teachers. Hey, teacher, leave them kids alone. All of that.
Yeah, right.
And the other one, just since we're talking about all this stuff, was that I would imagine standing outside the house on the street and my mum and dad were in the room through the window, but they weren't human. But whenever I looked at them, they appeared to be human. And I used to try and imagine ways that I could trick my vision into seeing them as they actually are, but I could never come up with any ways of doing it. Mirrors wouldn't work, cameras wouldn't work. I could never see them as they were.
Oh no. Did you ever ask them?
No, I never did. Mum, Dad, are you human? But who's to say that's not the case? That might be the case right now. Maybe none of you are human and I'm the only one, but I can never see you as you really are.
Right. I wouldn't say that I was human anyway. I would say that I was having a human experience.
Ah. That's a nice way of putting it, actually. Yeah, I heard that from someone before and it did resonate. I found it quite comforting, actually.
Right, yeah. Because then there's something that is, I don't know, beyond.
Transcendent.
The human. Well, just beyond the human that is inhabiting the human experience.
Yeah.
That's what that would suggest. Yeah. The person sitting behind the remote control at the next level up, maybe?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Good part.
Yeah. Anyway.
Right, we'll leave it there. We'll say goodbye to our listeners and we'll say thank you.
Our millions of listeners, thank you. We have representatives from, I think, what did we say last? 123 countries?
Aye, something like that. Along those lines. And most of them human, I would hope. But who can tell?
Yeah, no. We appreciate all of you. I'm sure we'd be able to fit you around a sizable dining table.
We could do that, yeah. Let's book a restaurant.
Yeah. If anyone, I'll tell you what, if anyone knows of a restaurant that's called the Unbeliever, then let us know and we can all meet there. That makes sense.
Share our unbelief over a nice meal of Aliantha.
And whatever, Sant Anubhavam, or whatever it is.
Amanubhavam.
Anubhavam for our horses.
What was the name of the creature that was...
Nilgai.
What? Describe it?
I can't.
You can't.
I think steers and perhaps, Nilgai literally means blue cow.
Oh, right.
So, I think it's, like, bit smaller and greyish color, and kind of horns that go straight up. That's what I think, but
right.
Curly, kind of spirally. May not be a correct image, but anyway, you can find out. All our listeners can find out if they wish.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Right, Barge. Thanks for coming along. See you next week.
Nice chatting. See you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.